everyone, and welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve critical business issues in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Sandra Wiley, president at BoomerConsulting, and with me today is Danielle McCormick. Hi, Danielle, and thank you so much for being on this episode of our podcast.
So fun, Sandra. Thanks for including me.
So Danielle, I think the first thing that we should hear about and the first thing that you should tell the audience about is, who you are, and tell us a little bit about Spiirall and your company.
Sure. So I am an accidental lover of this business and this industry. I found myself here totally accidentally almost 10 years ago, where I joined a top 100 firm and called, at the time, it was Kennedy & Co., but as things tend to shift, the names have changed, then to Keiko Isom and now Pinion. Great place to learn the business. And in it, I was a talent advisor when I joined the firm and was able to learn quite a bit and quickly ascended into some additional roles where I eventually was the principal and the distinct ability development leader, which essentially means my job was everything learning and development, everything that helped people to spend 80% of their time doing 80% of what they're best at and what they love doing, and creating all of the learning programs in order to help them to get there. And Spiirall, which is a new business that we started, is actually an outsourced learning and development solution that was created based on what we learned at Pinion. As different firms started hearing about the results that we were achieving, we started getting a lot of calls, a lot of questions saying, can we hire you in order to provide us guidance? So many firms want to do the right thing by their employees with learning and develop. They just don't necessarily know what good looks like or how they can accomplish it. And so we actually, several firms helped us to be able to invest in a new startup last year, where we actually bring 3 key areas of learning and development support to firms, both large firms and small firms, that really help to either solidify and create a really solid foundation or help them to go from really good to being exceptional. And so we focus on talent advising services, which I mentioned, which is really coaching services that we provide, where they're career coaches, not there to provide technical guidance, but really to provide the additional support that so many employees are needing now as the world has continued to change in career management, how to really manage work and home all at the same time. And then we do general talent consulting within firms, but really our primary service is a full outsourced learning and development solution where our clients really work with us to handle everything from their compliance needs, their learning management needs, all of the content that we bring in all sorts of creative ways. But really a big part of what we do is partner with firms to ensure that they have a learning strategy that actually matches their firm strategy. So it's been very fun. We're working with firms all over the country, and I spend my days talking to managing partners and HR directors looking to solve the never-ending list of challenges that seem to exist in our industry that's changing as rapidly as we can or cannot keep up with.
I love that. And isn't it, don't you feel like this is that time when firms are finally saying, okay, we have got to up our game in this whole learning and development arena? And so I think you're at the right place at the right time. And I think that's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree.
So the topic today is 3 ways to develop, upskill, and educate in the year ahead. But I told you when we started this that while that's the topic, I want you to have kind of free reign to do the things that you need to do that are the best for you, right? So one of the first questions I have for you is, are there any really specific strategies that you believe firms should employ today to get a jump start on their learning and development in their firms? Because the reality is everybody knows they need to do this. Many of them just don't know where to start. So what do you think?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. So first, before they get into the strategies that they might need to deploy, first it's about a mindset shift. And so far too many firms still see their L&D function really that their primary responsibility is to ensure that people address their CPE compliance needs. So first and foremost, if that's the approach, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. That is the bare minimum of really what a great L&D partner can do for you. The more forward-thinking firms understand the value of L&D, but might struggle to understand how to deploy and develop an L&D strategy that aligns with the direction of the firm. So what I mean by that is lots of times executive leadership team or a board will create a firm strategy, right? That's not a new concept. That's so much of the good work that you all do is to help firms to create that. But far too often, the L&D person or team, if they exist, is told about that at the same time as the rest of the firm, or sometimes even later than a lot of their more senior leadership groups. So then they're in recovery mode. They're not at the table to be able to help ensure that they're going to be able to achieve those goals. So, for example, I was working with a firm not long ago that had done some really good strategic planning work. And one of their key goals for 2024 was they had a goal of an increase of 20% in new projects sold to current clients in the next year, right? So good goal. The idea is, what can we do to bring additional services to existing clients? The problem, though, is, and this is one of those scenarios, the L&D team learned of this at the same time everybody else did with the firm rollout. And so when I asked the question, okay, well, so what's the plan in order to be able to equip these leaders to actually accomplish this goal, I got a very blank stare. And as you know, selling to current clients is a very different skill set, different listening skills, different question asking skills than it is to bring in a brand new client to a firm, especially if you're selling only one particular service line. And so this is a scenario where I'm doubtful that they're actually going to be able to accomplish this because there's no infrastructure put in place in order for people to do it. It's just go do it because we said you should. Whereas had they started much sooner and said, how can we work through this? That learning strategy could be put in place really at the same time as launch. So an alternative to that, I was working with a firm that they currently are utilizing about 15 employees in an offshore talent scenario. And they want to grow that from 15 employees to 60 within the next year. That's an aggressive goal. Before they made this determination, they actually, brought us in and brought in the local L&D team member to say, okay, this is our goal. What is it going to take in order for us to be able to get there from a learning strategy? Because we know there's a huge turnover, quite a bit, when we're looking at bringing in temporary or contract employees in an offshore scenario. So what can we do in order to make sure we're going to retain them? So two very, very different approaches. And one, they're going to have a much better turnout, right? So the firms that are able to make this mindset shift right off the bat to say that L&D is going to be part of how we accomplish our strategy, as opposed to a person or a team that's going to manage CPE for us, time and time again, yield much better results.
I love that. I've never really thought about that before, and I love that because it's being on the front end of strategy instead of the laggard, right? Instead of after you've already put it into place, saying, oh, by the way, now we need you to, it's on the front side. And that is a mindset shift that's as big or bigger than the fact that we are more than just CPE.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, the ones that do it, I mean, I was really fortunate for the firm I worked with that I was in regular contact with the managing partner. I was asked on a frequent basis, what do you think about this? Could we do this? Here's the problem. How would we approach this from a learning perspective? The more frequently the managing partner is talking to the learning person and the marketing person is talking to the learning person, hands down, the better results the firm is going to have. The more siloed those individuals are from each other, the more concern I have in that strategic alignment across all three of those areas.
Yep. This is not a question that I told you I was going to ask, so sorry. I'm going to throw it in there. You don't have to talk about the name of the firm or anything, but when you look at a really successful learning and development program in a CPA firm, what are some of those attributes? What are the things that they have that other firms don't have? If you were going to talk about what makes them so great.
The basics, first and foremost, is access, right? That they have access to the decision makers and that they're part of the decision-making process. They have a budget. So the amount really depends on the firm. Industry average is really, depending on the firm, runs between, not including the compensation of any team members, really anywhere from, I would say, $1,300 on average per employee per year to north of 2,000 per employee per year. They absolutely need to have a really solid orientation and onboarding program, a really clear on-the-job training experience for employees, and then that they have content that is built that is really addressing the needs of that firm strategy. So again, that they should be able to clearly say, here's why we're offering anything that we're offering, and how, and tie it back to the firm goals. That's a very simplified answer. Obviously, they should have the right systems and infrastructure and a learning management system and content providers and all of those things. But really, at the heart of it, a really solid organization should have, at minimum, all of those key things.
I love it. I love it. So we hear a lot in the profession and in the world today about these new people, right? The new people entering the profession. I don't think they're all that new. I think that it's things that have been around for years, right?
Agreed.
But it's a stronger voice today. But that is affecting skills in the firms, in the world. What do you think are some of the biggest skill gaps that are in the profession today, and how are we addressing those, or how should we be addressing those?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm going to trick you because I'm going to answer it without answering it on purpose. Because I think it's really less about the specific gaps and more about how we're addressing them. And so we have to get better at developing talent much, much faster. So this old development model that existed of hiring an intern and then keeping them until they die or retire, right, is just in our rearview mirror. We know employees are staying for much shorter periods of time. And so, I mean, I can give you some obvious answers, like we need to build more consultative skills. We need to teach people to ask better questions, better listening skills. But I think that actually the ability to be agile is the most critical thing that we need to be looking at with firms, of a skill to develop, and also for something for us to be able to practice. So our client needs, employee needs, firm needs, they're shifting so stinking fast, right? And we have to be able to address those skill gap needs in order to support them. And I think firms need to understand that whatever they build might have a much shorter shelf life than what they had in the past. So we need to be able to address the just-in-time needs as they arise. And so, you know, when I think about some programs or some firms that I've seen that have been doing this really well, right, the idea of having project management training is nothing new. But it's a matter of spinning it in order for it to actually address whatever exists at one particular time. So I was working with a firm, might sound familiar. They had significant turnover recently at the senior associate level. And they were panicking. They were having the oh shoot moment where all of a sudden we are missing this very, very large population of people that manages a great deal of the work that we do, especially on the tax side. And so as we were working with them to help them to come up with the right solutions, what we really recognized was we needed to have a fast track program. We needed to help them to create what we call Project Leader University. And so it was a 12 to 18 month program that we built in, where literally we took employees who had been with the firm for like one busy season and said, we've got to develop 4 to 5 years of experience in 2 to 3 years. That was just the mission that was in front of us. And so we built out, like I said, there was a mentorship component, some formal education, but it really allowed people to work across all of these different offices, different teams, and it stuck. I mean, at this point, it's been going on now for several years. They've seen fantastic results. The individuals who participate in this program are getting promoted much faster. And more importantly, the firm's starting to see, wait a minute, when we used to think, okay, we had to teach someone how to prepare a 1040 before they could review a 1040. No, we really don't. We can teach people differently to operate at a much more advanced level, much faster. Same thing, I'm seeing some firms play a little bit with former interns that are coming back, creating an accelerated development experience for them. So they've already learned the basics of your firm. So what can we do to really push the envelope in what they're looking to do? And then, you know, I was thinking about even last year, right? So many firms were dealing with this, you know, the Great Resignation, and taking an existing program and turning it or adjusting it and being agile in order to address the need. I think goal writing is something that many firms teach employees to do, right? They have a professional development plan or some sort of goal writing. But some of the work we did with this firm was really changing it from how to write a goal to really how can you create the focus in order for you to have more control and autonomy in the world and the life that you want. So you stop reading these headlines and think that you need to quit, right? That the grass is greener at another firm, or if I go and chase $10,000 increase, like, no, because wherever you go, there you are. You're going to run into the same challenges there that you do in your current firm. And so we took this goal writing program and really had employees walk through a process of getting clear on, okay, what matters to me right now in my personal life? What stage of life am I in? You know, am I getting ready to start a family? Am I looking to buy a house? Do I want to make as much money as possible? Or am I in a stage where I really want to spend more time with my children or an aging parent? Or, you know, let's get real on what's happening right now and adjust that to a much shorter time frame. And then from there, start to identify, okay, what's my relationship with work? What kind of compensation am I really looking for? What matters to me right now? So it's really about taking an old program of how to write goals, shifting it to say, let's control this narrative, make these employees feel empowered in their experience, as opposed to waiting to get some call from a recruiter and feeling like they need to say yes and entertain that conversation, right? So in general, when we think about those skill gap development, it's really about quick, what are the trends that we're seeing? Because it's just happening so fast, and being able to put some resources to creatively come up with some training solutions that on the good, better, best category, where we used to try to invest in the best and take forever to build it. That doesn't exist anymore. You need to be able to jump out there in order to address something really quickly in an adjust-in-time scenario.
I love it. I truly love that. So it's so smart, right? We have been hearing that. You and I have been hearing that for years. We heard it from another company years ago in the learning and development, or maybe it was the talent circle. But we heard a company talk about you have to train people faster. They have to be at a higher level, more important, more meaningful work faster than we've ever had before. And I shouldn't say all. I never should use say all, but a lot of people have said can't be done. Well, we're here to tell you it can be. So being quick, being agile, having the right resources, having the right mindset, also so very important. So I'm curious, we're down to our last few minutes here. On a final note, what's a learning and development trend that you think firms should focus on in the year ahead? So now we're not looking 5 years out, right? We're looking like in 2023. What do you think where should they put their focus right now?
It's a great question. And, I have 20 answers to this because I can't give you just one, but I did choose one that encompasses 20 things. I really think that it's all about onboarding. When I say onboarding, I mean year one of an employee's experience. And I don't mean just your college to career employee. During the pandemic, we kind of, paper clipped and bubble gummed our way through remote onboarding. And now it's here to stay. And the great news is we're hiring people, especially experienced professionals from all over the country into our firms. But what we're also starting to see now that the dust is settling is, we hired someone at a manager level or a senior manager level, and what their previous firm meant by senior manager is different than what we thought. And there were a lot of gaps in that initial onboarding experience where we thought, they're an audit senior manager, so clearly that's going to mean, we're going to be in the same scenario. And now what's happening is I'm seeing a big trend of a general lowering of performance at more experienced people. And so we need to take some time to look at that more creatively. So what does that look like? I think for experienced professionals, definitely having a really clear onboarding plan that actually lasts 12 months, where we clearly outline what does good look like at 90 days? What does good look like at 6 months? What does good look like at 12 months? And then you actually look and remember to go back and look at that onboarding plan. That's one of the things I'm really seeing for experienced professionals. For college to career, what I'm finding is, bless their hearts, right? Our young professionals come in, they are eager, they are curious, and they have 50 questions. And there's a different skill set of supervising someone who's been with your firm for 2 years versus for 2 days. And so having the patience to answer the same question 25 times can be exhausting for people. And so I'm actually seeing some firms play with a really creative approach to onboarding where they actually have onboarding teams. So they're former accountants who actually supervise the new employees who are coming in. And so they're the primary people who are doing the review of the work. They're answering the technical questions. So instead of spreading it like peanut butter and, assigning these interns or new staff across usually to senior associates that are our busiest people anyway, that have less time to be able to dedicate, they really do a nice job of just concentrating the effort. And I'm seeing results. I mean, they're lightning fast of how much faster the development is taking place. They're using ticket systems if someone has a question. There's a centralized team if people have questions. So a real concentrated effort in looking at a different way to onboard, because we know the college system, struggled over the last couple of years to adequately prepare just because of the scenario they were in with remote learning. So pivoting and saying, let's come up with a different approach has been a super smart way to do it.
I love it. I love it. Danielle, thank you so much. I think everybody that is listening has learned a ton today. But you know what? I'm going to guess that there's going to be a whole bunch of people listening that say, oh man, I have questions for her. So what is the best way for our audience to get a hold of you?
Definitely, you can find me on LinkedIn at Danielle McCormick, and then also at our website, which is Spiirall.com. It's a little tricky because we spell spiral in a creative way, and anybody who wants to learn more about that can buy me a glass of wine and I'll tell you that story. But it's Spiirall.com. So 2 I's, 2 L's in Spiirall. And so go there. You can certainly find our contact information and learn more about our whole Spiirall team.
And I will tell our audience that you will be blessed and you will be amazed if you reach out to Danielle and have a conversation with her, because she gets our profession, but even more so, she will teach you things that you need to know. So please reach out to her. And we would like to thank you for being a part of this podcast today. We'd like to thank our audience for listening, and we hope that you tune in again soon to hear the next big podcast from Boomer Consulting. Thanks, everybody, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Sandra.